Hello, everybody, and welcome to Keep It Spiritually Simple. I'm your host, Sandra McEllis. And before I introduce our beautiful guests, for all of you that are new here to the show, thank you so much for coming on board. Please like, subscribe, share, leave us comments. For those of you who have listened to the show previously, every single like is so supportive to this show, and I greatly appreciate it, as does our guest. So if you're listening to us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, etc., and you'd like to see the faces and the personalities that are on this show, zip over to my YouTube channel, Sandra McEllis, and you can experience us here. You can leave me a question. I have a tendency to answer those more quickly, or even bring it onto an upcoming show and maybe ask the guest your question and have an answer for you that is important to all who are listening at the moment. So, hello, Elizabeth Tomboulian. How are you? Tomboulian.
I'm fine. Tomboulian, yeah.
Tomboulian. I always
It
know
means
people by their first name, so it's hard for
means
me to remember
drums
last.
drums playing in Sanskrit.
Oh, I like that.
Tomboulian, Tomboulian, Tomboulian,
Tomboulian.
Tomboulian.
All
You can call
righty.
me Elizabeth, though. That makes it easy. Yeah.
All right, Elizabeth. Well, welcome to Keep It Spiritually Simple. And, tell the audience a little bit about you and what it is that you do in the world of healing and awakening and assisting and being on your soul's path.
I'm really blessed to have a number of practices. I juggle many hats, and I have a lot of heart for each one of them. My primary practice is quantum energetic structured therapy, and that's a practice wherein I work with the blueprint, the etheric body, and I have a tremendously vast system of corrective procedures for bones, muscles, ligaments, organs, for fractures, avulsions, swellings, misalignments, you name it. I direct the disruptions in the blueprint to clear so that catalyzes the client to repattern the physical from a blueprint free of disruptions. And every cell in the body is regenerated every 7 years, even the skeleton. So no condition is lifelong because it's possible to repattern. So I love the work that I do. And another thing that I do is I teach opening the Akashic records, and I give Akashic record readings, and that's primarily through the Saint Germain Mystery School with Maureen Saint Germain's organization.
Who has
And
been on this show a few times and who's coming back. Love Maureen.
yeah, I love Maureen too. She's one of my dearest friends. Actually, I'm really blessed to know her and be one of her colleagues and count her among my friends. She's so brilliant, and she has such a great heart for bringing her channeled wisdom to the masses. I mean, she's just really great that way. Yeah. And
Indeed.
I'm also a lifelong musician. I've been in church music ministry across the spectrum of Christian churches and Unitarian, and I'm currently serving a Lutheran congregation near ASU. So it's pretty cool.
Nice. So would you say you're more right brain than left?
I think I have a pretty balanced corpus callosum and function well in both hemispheres.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. I was just curious because you have so much of the art, the
I
healing
have the
art, the
art thing,
musical
but
art.
yeah, but the ability to analyze has been with me since I was very young. Yeah, so I think that's kind of a left brain process. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell us a little bit more about the healing work that you're currently doing, that you do sessions with people and you were called to do, and maybe some of the
Okay.
experiences, and then we'll go into my own personal experience.
Nice, nice. Well, I was a desktop publisher for about 15 years, and I published large books, The Arkansas Statistical Abstract was the first one, and then I worked at the University of North Texas publishing catalogs, but I've always been a singer through I've been a musician since I was a teenager, and I was at Omega studying with Bobby McFerrin and his associates, his vocal improv thing. The retreat was called Spontaneous Inventions, and it was the first of his uh, annual circle singing retreats at the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York. And I had a session with Elizabeth Harper, who is a quantum, I'm sorry, had a little blip there. It's an intuitive color therapy session. And I had no idea what that was, but sounded interesting to me. And she uses Aurosoma, and these are bottles of oil that have different colors, 2 tones in each bottle. And she does a guided meditation. And then when you come out of the meditation, you choose 4 bottles to impart the greatest wisdom from your guides. And at one point, I chose a bottle that was a deep forest green on the bottom and a light, in publishing terms, a 10% screen, like a sea foam on the top. And she said, well, this is ideally you would choose a bottle of equal density of color because the bottom represents your third dimensional reality, babies, bottles, and bills. And the top part represents your manifesting your soul's destiny. And you're putting all of your ism, all of your energy into this third dimensional reality. And I sense you're stronger than many of those around you. And while you're helping everybody, you're not really helping them. And you're interfering with their learning. And meanwhile, while you're taking care of everybody else's business, nobody's taking care of your soul's business. And it rang so true. It just really moved me to where when I went back to Texas from New York, where I told my husband I was quitting my job. And she also told me I'm a healer. And I said, what does that mean? I have no credentials. She said, you have energy that when people come into your energy, they may be healed. And I said, does that mean I have to go to school? Don't make me, And she said, she kind of tuned in and she said, I see you traveling a short distance over a number of years for classes, but no entrenched school thing. And it was about 7 months later, I was on the big island of Hawaii, and we had upside down our lives, moved from Texas to Wisconsin. My husband had the job instead of me I'd been having the job for a long time. And I was on the big island of Hawaii, and I had been, having had Reiki attunements, studied, uh, had an introduction to healing touch, which is the American Holistic Nurses Association practice of hands over the body with intention. And I had craniosacral therapy classes, and that's a really nice subtle energy work, with the cerebral spinal system, the fluid system there. And I was really craving a system of energetic healing that was relative and pertinent and specific to the physical body, so that if somebody came with a broken ankle or a sprained ankle, that I could have specific corrective procedures for them. And when I was in Hawaii with one of Bobby McFerrin's associates, Rhiannon, a wonderful singer and teacher, Rhiannon came out of the water with vertigo, and on the second or third day, and our chef, Julie Stoll, had her quantum energetics handbook, and it's like 200 pages of corrective procedures for bones, muscles, ligaments, for fractures of, it's like, wow, where did you learn this? Colorado? How long did it take? Classes intermittently for 2 years. How much did it cost? About $8,000. I said, well, fat chance I'll get to Colorado for 2 years with $8,000 in my pocket. And she said, well, where do you live? And I said, Wisconsin. And she said, oh, well, one of the founders moved there. And I got goose flesh. I just kind of lit up and felt the distinct message, this is for you. And I'd been on the Big Island for another 10 days after the vocal retreat. And I got home, my husband picked me up on a Friday night in Milwaukee, and Saturday I was helping him load in equipment for a musical gig at a restaurant, and I didn't usually do that because he's a man, he doesn't need my help, but I hadn't seen him in a long time. So this guy walks up to me in the restaurant and says, "Hi, I'm Andy, and I'm playing bass tonight, and I'm enrolled in a quantum energetics class that begins in Green Bay next fall, and we need another person for the class to make." It's like, okay, you're gonna help me find the money, you know what I mean? So I feel so blessed to be so divinely directed, and no doubt about what
Mhm.
I have to do. And so I studied for 2 years and became a certified quantum energetic structured therapist. And I've been practicing ever since then. I started my studies in 2006 and graduated in 2008. And that brought, eventually we went to New York City, and I started practicing first at the Meta Center in New York. And when they closed, then I moved over to the Association for Research and Enlightenment, the Edgar Cayce New York Center, and was practicing there. And that's where I met Maureen. She interviewed me to serve with her on the board of trustees at the Edgar Cayce New York Center. And that was a wonderful time. Eventually, the center closed like 2018, I think. And at that point, I took my quantum energetics practice to remote work. And so I've been practicing my work primarily remotely since 2018. When the pandemic hit, it didn't really impact my practice at all because I was already working with people remotely. If somebody is interested in the power of quantum healing, my first experience with understanding that was through the Institute of Noetic Sciences. I think it's ions.com or .org. And Edgar Mitchell founded that organization after an epiphany he had when being an astronaut in outer space. He had this inner knowing thing, and it's about the knowing that we have inside. And he spoke of working with a healer in Vancouver, and he was in Florida, and this remote healer healed his kidney anomaly. It was proved on imaging. So there's a lot of science is kind of catching up with the reality that humanity is connected as one through this field, and there's no absence of energy connecting all of us. And so it seems miraculous, but I think we're kind of remembering our power, and remembering that we're not subject to things outside of us so much to be healed. So I help
Sure.
people remember how they are well, basically.
And that's beautiful. So tell us a little bit about some of the experiences through this healing that you've done.
Well, I've had a few really miraculous occurrences. One was back when I was still practicing in Appleton, Wisconsin. So I think it was like 2009. I worked with a baby who hadn't crawled. She was 11 months old, and her mother had taken her to one of my teachers who was on sabbatical. And so the teacher passed me her file, and I worked with the baby for about 35 minutes and found nerve swellings as one of the factors and misalignments as another factor. And so I worked with the baby for about 35 minutes on misalignments in the pelvis and swellings of the gluteal nerve and the sciatic nerve and the lumbar nerves. And I forget, there were like 4 or 5 different, there are 13 nerves that go through the sacrum. So there were, I think, at least 4 or 5 nerve swellings, some misalignments. And the baby went home that night, and mom put her on the blanket she'd been on for 11 months, while she was cooking, and the baby crawled off the blanket. And she spent later that night crawling back and forth from mom to dad and happy as a clam. And then I saw the baby once a month and just going through the work. The work is cumulative. The corrective procedures have numbers, and they go into the millions, and there are many blanks between the numbers. But I was taking the baby through the work in order, And a few months later, mom said, they're concerned that she's not walking, So then I went out of order to the list book. I have a wonderful list book, and determined that the primary reason the baby wasn't walking was misalignments. And then I looked at the misalignment list, and it was misalignments in the feet, in one foot, and also misalignments in the knee, in that same leg. And I just worked with her for about half an hour. That's all that she would abide. And that baby went home and was walking that night back and forth from mom to dad, And so that kind of is my poster child for it's not placebo, because a young child like that, I don't think has the mental acuity to even engage with placebo.
Sure.
So this is one of my poster children. So, and she's now, I guess that was 2009. So she's a teenager now, and she's doing great. So, another really wonderful experience I've had. I've had many occasions to help people avoid invasive surgery with plates and screws when they've had injuries. One of my ex-husband's former students, piano students at Lawrence University in Wisconsin, had moved on to New England Conservatory and then moved to New York City. And we were living there, and I was working at the Casey Center, and he had a bike accident where he was riding his bike in Manhattan, and somebody opened the door and crushed his hand.
Hmm.
And I saw that, and I reached out to him, and I said, Eli, you might want to experience my work, it could be helpful. So I had two-hour sessions with Eli, and I would tell him what part of his hand I was working with. There were fractures, there were swellings, there were some things having to do with ligaments and the musculature, and really a deep dive into his hand and to clear disruptions there. And by the time he got back to the doctor, they had told him to go away for the edema, the swelling to abate, and to come back. I think it was 2 or 3 months later for surgery. And they were planning to put in a plate and screws between his second and third metacarpal, the inside the hand bones. And by the time he got back, they said, "Oh, everything's healed. You don't need surgery." So that's just one of many experiences I've had with helping people avoid. And I want to be clear that I'm not a doctor, and I don't consider myself a substitute for a physician's therapy. I see my work as supporting clearing from doctor's diagnosis on an energetic level, so that people can, I don't tell people not to take their medicine and things like that. So I'm not a doctor, but I believed Elizabeth Harper when she told me that I have energy, that when people come into it, they may be healed. So yeah.
That is beautiful. And then that sets you on a trajectory of becoming a more established healer that has helped people. I know for my personal session, it's done on the phone and you're taking, health intake. And then you had me go lay down. And when I lay down, in my mind, I'm trying to pay attention to this is my time with Elizabeth. But there's also in my mind, okay, when I'm done, I gotta do this, I gotta do that just to finish up my day. But I really, when I laid down, for some reason, I just whooshed straight in. And you went into the cranium to do some work. And of
Mhm.
course, we're on the phone, we don't see each other. And she's like, I'm gonna do some work in the cranium. I don't know where she is or what she's doing. All I know is like my left eye had this like weird squiggle through it. And then my eyes involuntarily scrunched twice, kind of. And it was weird because it was so fast that I was like, what just happened there? Like, sometimes your eye will twitch and then you kind of reach for it and you're like, okay, calm down. This was so fast and so furious that it was like I didn't create that. I didn't start that. I didn't stop that. That is just so really bizarre. But I stayed really deep during our session. And then after our session, a couple hours later, I noticed that the tops of both my forearms tingled together. They were, and I called it like God bumps. So it wasn't like isolated goosebumps, but in a way it was. And I just was talking with somebody and I was in conversation, but I was making mental note that this was going on, and just to know that I was safe and that my neural pathways, my neurological system, my nervous system, everything was still an expression of what was going on from the session. So I allowed myself to just calmly continue this conversation with someone while I was making the mental note of what was happening in my body. And I would probably say I'm sleeping a little bit better because that is an issue for me. But I'll probably say one of the things I notice, along with all the other energies that are going on right now, I feel more mentally alert, if that makes sense. Just like there's more space in what's inside my head. Doesn't feel so, and I would never have thought of it being compressed until it expanded. And then I was like, oh. So those are just some of the things that I'm noticing from my session. And we didn't even do a total complete session. I can only imagine what it would be like to have a complete session as well as repetitive sessions and just see and make note of the progress, but it was very powerful. And
Yeah,
it continues to unfold.
you had a 30-minute intake and a 30-minute session,
Yes,
and
yes,
that's cutting. The normal first session is an hour intake and an hour
yes,
therapy.
yes, exactly,
So it
exactly.
was just a taste, I wanted you to experience the work, and I'm glad that you have some visceral responses to the work, and notice your cranium opening up, So
Mm-hmm.
um, I like to work. A lot of the people who are drawn to my work have suffered from chronic um, conditions for, a long time, and their conditions are really entrenched in the physical. So to repattern the physical from a really entrenched condition um, may require more than a 30-minute session, you know what I mean? Uh,
Sure.
so I like to work in series of 10 hours. I call it my commitment package. I give people a significant reduction in the off my hourly. I think my hourly is advertised at like $2.22 an hour. And the commitment package gets it down to 160, which is more reasonable. And I also will take payments, um, but and it's not about a lot of money, getting a lot of money, but it's about valuing the work that I do and having the client invest themselves as much in their healing as I am,
Sure.
And and also when a client experiences 10 hours of the work, then it's really easy for them to notice the changes that they've experienced. People who have had chronic back aches or neck aches or headaches or, aches and pains, people who've had, urinary tract infections recurring, you know, there, lots of people who were like falling down all the time are no longer falling down, and so I just love the work that I do, and if anyone is drawn to my work, just reach out and we'll find a way, to make it happen.
Absolutely. And the fact that you can do it over the phone is amazing. Um, it's not amazing to someone like me who does work over the phone and Zoom with people. I know when I was doing coaching and past life regression, even before COVID, I loved doing things by Zoom. And there were people that were very skeptical of that,
Mm.
right? And they
Yeah.
wanted to be, you know, the ones, even the ones that live within the DMV, to DC, Maryland, Virginia, wanted to come see me in person, mostly because they just love the camaraderie of being in the energies. And I get that. But the fact that you can offer this to people, no matter where they are in the world or what time zone that they're in. But I remind people, if you believe in the power of prayer, do you have to be in the person's face for the power of prayer to work for you? You know, so people are like, oh, I see, I see. So you have to trust. You have to trust that your prayer does what you've intended, right? Through the God work. And then you do the same with all the healing work. And I always say you will draw the people that believe and need you, and the rest will learn later and probably come across your table or your phone lines at some point in time. But where can people find you?
My website is quantumstarsong.com.
Okay.
If you can spell my name, it points to the same website, elizabethtomboulian.com. And there's also quantumhealernyc.com. They all point to the same website. And I did a naughty thing a few years ago. I got tired of maintaining a music website and a healing website, and I combined the two. So you'll see a lot of references to my musicianship on the website
I
too.
love it. We have to
Yeah.
keep it simple. I have multiple little websites. I'm now
Exactly.
trying to
Keep it
combine it all.
simple.
And some people will say, oh, no, you've got to brand it here and do it that. And I'm like, nah, I'm going to do it my way that works for me. And the people that will get attracted to me will understand that. It's sort of like when you're having conversation with someone and I'm a random talker, right? I can go from one topic to another topic and then whoosh back to that topic. And I understand people that do that. And I love it when people can pick up when I do that. So those are the kind of people I like to hang around. And I always find that you'll attract the people that you need to your practice if you honor who you are in your authenticness, which is your soul's path, right? And
Exactly.
so do your website, do you, boo, and everybody else mind your own damn business. That's how I look at it.
Right.
But Elizabeth, let's
Uh,
spell your last name so that the viewers know how to spell it. They can always come over to YouTube and see where your name is on the screen. But, you know, in case they can't, just spell
Okay.
Elizabeth and then your last name, please.
Uh, Elizabeth, and Tomboulian is Tomb as in boy, Oulian. Tomboulian is how you say it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I will have those links in the description on the YouTube channel. So get over to Sandra McEllis YouTube and you'll see her links there, which will be quantumstarsong.com.
That's the
Um,
primary one.
yeah, that's the primary one,
That's
and it's easier
I'm
than, you know,
trying to
people can remember that.
brand myself as that, and just FYI, Star Song is my elder medicine name that was dreamed to me in a ceremony out here in the desert, a
Nice.
purification ceremony. Yeah.
Nice. And out there in the desert, just got a little bit of rain recently, which is wonderful.
Yes.
So listen, would you come back on again?
I'd happily come back on again, and I really appreciate you're keeping it spiritually simple outreach. I think it's a great idea. We don't have to be complex in order to be sacred.
Well, I agree with you. And Spirit has told me that for a very, very long time. And for a very long time, I fought desperately to make it more complicated. I kept saying, no, it needs to sound more intelligent. It needs to have more left brain involved in this. And then it was like, no, Sandy, it doesn't. And the more complicated you make it, the less people are going to stick with it. So if you can keep it simple. So my theme used to be keep it simple, Sandy, instead of trying to complicate it and creating my own hurdles and following everyone around with a pooper scooper before they pooped, you
Oh
know,
my goodness.
trying to create a lot of work for myself,
All
you know.
right.
And when COVID hit and they told me I had to start a YouTube channel, I was like, I've got what? I don't have anything to say. Like, what are you talking about? It makes me nervous, even you just mentioning it while I was vacuuming. And then they're like, no, we want you to do it. I said, I am the most tech non understanding person in the world. Like, I can't even get the remote control of the TV to work without me wanting to break it.
But
But
you
they said,
found a way.
exactly. And I found a way and I figured it out. I still don't know how to edit and do things, but I'm gradually learning. But they guided me to one of my old books I had written in, and it said, keep it spiritually simple, Sandy. And they said, just call it Keep It Spiritually Simple. And I was like, okay, that's what we'll do. And you know what? When you follow spirit, things just flow. They
Absolutely.
just do.
Yeah.
You don't have a lot of the bumps and the hurdles and you may have some unlit areas that you've got to work on that may trigger you to either go forward, left, or right, but you're still listening to that innate voice. And that's important. And that's what you've listened to. And that's what's gotten
Yeah.
us here in
I've
this
had
moment.
so many just miraculous provisions in my practice. My first office in Appleton was in a historic building, a beautiful two-room suite with a waiting room. And when I toured the thing, it hadn't been rented for years, and I got an entrepreneurial special where it was like my rent the first quarter was $25 a month. And it increased incrementally. And when I left there about 4 years, 2 years later, it had gotten up to like 440 or something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I even when don't I would just suggest that people just claim what their vision is, that what their heart is for, and don't try to do the how part, and let source, who provides everything, find these miraculous ways. Because I would have never, written it on an affirmation list. I will have an office for $25 a month. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Source is more brilliant than me, so yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you, Elizabeth Tomboulian. I really do appreciate you. And all the viewers, thank you so very much for tuning in to Keep It Spiritually Simple. Please, again, like, subscribe, share, pass this out to a friend. They may really enjoy it. They may like a healing session. Who knows? But, I believe sharing is caring. And that's what we're doing here at Keep It Spiritually Simple podcast. All right, everybody. So, Elizabeth, stay put, but say goodbye to everybody.
Bye bye, everybody. So nice to be here. Thank you, Sandra.
Bye, everybody.